So tell us about your latest piece, Roger. You're talking about the dangers of potential warfare at sea.
Yes. Essentially, the point is that we've all been focused for the last year on land war because of Ukraine, trenches and shell shock and all this kind of stuff. But actually, if you want to find out about the future of the war, then it has to be based on war at sea, because that's how it's all shaping up. And the main problem is, of course, Taiwan and China's intentions to integrate it, and how then the situation will evolve when they do this, and in what time period they'll do it. So that's the first thing. But frankly, there's problems in the Arctic, there's problems in the Caspian Sea, there's problems in the Black Sea. People are using blockades. There's all sorts of, and people are making power grabs for ports in warm water destinations and so on. So actually, the point of the piece is to say, let's focus not just on the grueling war in Ukraine, but also on what's happening at sea.
I mean, looking at it, Roger, as a casual bystander, it's almost as if there's been a sudden awakening of awareness of the potential for warfare at sea since the Nord Stream pipeline was damaged, and since the story just a couple of weeks ago of a Norwegian investigation into Russian vessels scoping out areas where they can inflict damage or sabotage on underwater assets.
Yes, I mean, basically the capabilities are all there. They've been building up massive. China, for example, has built up a massive navy over the last 5 years, and they're quite, trigger happy. They're quite keen to try it out, see what their capabilities are. Russia too, and that's one thing. And the other is that actually the rather cramped war in Ukraine, where there's very little room for maneuver. Sometimes you have whole months of slog, First World War style slogging, attritional warfare. War at sea gives you space for maneuver.
Yes.
And that's what the Russians did when they blockaded Ukrainian ports. And what I'm saying is, well, this kind of blockade strategy is almost certainly what's going to happen in Taiwan.
Yes.
And this is what the Chinese are rehearsing for.
I wonder how far it's possible for sea warfare to change. I mean, some aspects of naval warfare, I guess, are kind of eternal. The need for the supplying of nations by sea using freight carriers, cargo ships, and so on, which in turn need to be defended from underwater attack, or I guess these days missile attack by destroyers and by naval escort power.
Yes, it hasn't changed much since the days of pirates, frankly, in terms of kind of guerrilla action at sea. And what hasn't changed very much either is the fact that there are choke points. So the Straits of Gibraltar, has traditionally been, that narrow entrance to the Mediterranean, and has always been a strategic choke point. If you've got Gibraltar, then you can close the sea.
Yes.
And there are at least 5 other Gibraltar-style choke points around the world, and some of them, if you get hold of it, if you control it, you could block the passage of oil to China,
Yes.
which is just such a massive strategic advantage.
If we're looking at potential adversaries, Roger, what are we really looking at here? In the case of Russia, the war in Ukraine has shown that the Russia's capacity to wage war on land has not been all it was cracked up to be. What is the case when it comes to Russian sea power? Because the Russian Navy has scarcely been engaged. What does that look like? The Russian Navy as a military force?
Well, it's well exercised, it's well funded, but it's spread out. Russia is a huge country and with a huge coastal country as well. And a lot of the concentration over the last few years under Putin has been on the Arctic because of climate change melting the Arctic Northern Passage. It was seen as one of the big saving moments for the Russian economy at some stage, that you could actually, function as a transit route between China and Europe, and China could simply ship its goods, and Russia too, ship goods along the Northern Passage, which is now, almost unfrozen. So there was a lot of concentration on building icebreakers and so on and so on and so on. And that's where the focus went. There wasn't a lot of concentration on the Black Sea Fleet because they were sure that they had Crimea, which is the home to the Russian Sevastopol is the home to the Russian Black Sea Fleet, and they thought they were absolutely secure there. And then suddenly everything changed, and I think the Navy is in the doghouse as far as Putin is concerned. It doesn't seem to have distinguished itself at all.
And what about China? I mean, I'm looking at your piece now. You described that, how China has worked on its sea power just in recent years and improved and strengthened its naval power really to a considerable degree.
Yes. I mean, it's every 4 years it adds in ships to its fleet the equivalent of the whole of the French fleet. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yes.
But it's a huge amount anyway. And it's overtaken the United States in terms of sheer numbers of vessels. What the Americans say, of course, is that, well, they've still got the technological advantage and so on. But at some stage that, quantity matters. And especially when America will, if America is supposed to ride to the rescue of Taiwan, it's not just going to be able to go through normal shipping lanes. China has found different ways of blocking the sea lanes, and so in a way, the technological advantages of the American fleet might not come, might not be enough.